Hello everyone, Chad with Data Prep U here again. Now today's session is going to be focused on our second of two macros that were part of a free training series that we held a short while back. Now in our last episode we focused on a macro that was able to automatically determine the very first row that actually contained header information. It would dynamically work through your data and automatically remove any rows that had completely null values in them, and then pull your first header row of data, whether that be on row 3, 4, 8, 20, or 50, all the way up to the very top. Now in this session, we're going to have a little bit of a different focus. Now it's still kind of header related. A lot of the customers that we work with, they have a lot of challenges with keeping those headers consistent, or keeping that structure of their data consistent from client to client or even internally. So in this episode, what we're going to focus on is taking the unique values from one particular column and converting those into your header values for your remaining data stream, just doing this automatically. So why don't we go ahead and jump into it. So here you can see that this particular workflow is relatively straightforward. What we're actually working on is a series of data that contains only a handful of information here. I'm going to go ahead and run my workflow to populate a little bit of data. But what we have is a field called value to list in our sample data using the macro input tool. Once again, as a reminder, anytime you're using the macro input tool from the interface category, this automatically converts whatever workflow you're working on into an Alteryx macro. And every macro input you see represents an input anchor within the custom tool that you are creating. Now from here, there's something a little special about this, because what we've done is we've selected the checkbox here to show field map. And the reason why we're doing this is when you have a field map, we are now going to get a drop down for every single field in our sample data set that shows up in our parent workflow. So whenever we're actually leveraging this macro, we're now going to get a drop down that will say, hey, which in your new data set, which of these fields represents the value to list column? Now that's going to make a lot more sense in just a moment here. But from here, what we do is we just take a little unique value from that list. Now my sample data set already has unique values, but I'm going to show you an example in just a moment that does not. And then we remove any other additional columns that just don't matter. It will only keep the value to list. Now what I like to do is set a unique value for this, or a unique record ID, and then go into a crosstab to spin this data around so it becomes your first row of data. And then finally, we use a dynamic rename tool to take the field names from first row of data and now populate whatever that first row of data was into those field names. And then at the very end here, we wrap things up using an output macro, or macro output, to create that output anchor. Now, why don't we actually see this in action? I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new workflow here. And I'm going to start with just inserting the macro that I've been working with here. So this values from field, you can see I've got an input and an output. And unlike the last episode that we have, we actually have a choice here. It's giving us a drop down that says select field for this value to list. Well, why don't we go ahead and just pull in a list, or a sample set of data here. I'm going to pull in an input data tool, zoom in a couple of clicks to make things a little bit easier to see, and then go into my quick little drop down. I've got a sample here for city populations that's pulled directly from the Alteryx samples folder. Now in this, you can see that I've got a lot of duplicate state names because there is a value for every city with the population for each city appended to this and with those states. Well, let's say we wanted to actually take only the state names and turn those into our field headers. So in our tool, in our macro here, I'm going to go ahead and take my one selection that says select a field, and I'm going to select state. And then I'm actually not even going to add a browse tool. I'm just going to run the workflow as is. Now you can see we have 0 records coming out of this, but that's actually by design, because we go from the input data of state, city, and population with all of these different states in here to the actual list of 52 states as now fields: Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, so on and so forth, all the way down to the very end. We also even have the District of Columbia in here as well. So The point of this is that we've actually been able to quickly and easily take the unique values out of this data and convert those into our new header values. Now, why might you want to do that? I'm going to switch back to me for just a moment here. You may want to do that because you may need to kind of set in stone the actual values you have for headers for some other process later on down the line. There's actually a number of different use cases where this could be incredibly helpful. Once again, my name is Chad Martin. If you like this video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. We love to create new content for you. Please let us know in the comments, or you feel free to email us at support@dataprepu.com if you have some other suggestions of some videos or different types of challenges that you're working through that we could actually help out with. We love being able to help out our customers and see what you can come up with after we've helped enable you into learning more about creating your own workflows in Alteryx. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.